We are speaking now to Ray McGovern about the deportation, the expulsion and deportation of Sputnik Turkey's editor-in-chief, Terrell Kerimov, and by the shutdown of Sputnik Turkey in Turkey by the Turkish government. Ray McGovern, a former CIA analyst, a political commentator, and journalist today. What's your reaction to this new news?
Well, Brian, to say this is outrageous is understating the case. Freedom of the press is a core value if you're going to have a democracy. Turkey pretends to be a democracy, but it's become actually a dictatorship under Erdogan. Now, I've seen a lot of censorship, and I've seen a lot of journalists thrown into jail. But this fellow is outdoing even the communist regime of the USSR back then. There's very little outrage in the press, in the Western press and the U.S. press. Even when Joe Biden, get this, early November of last year, 2015, he says, the truth be told, it's Turkey, it's Qatar, it's the Saudis, it's the other Gulf kingdoms, so to speak, who are supporting the terrorists.
In Syria.
What happened? In Syria, yeah. So what happens? Well, due note taken of it for one day, and then nobody comments on that, and then Joe Biden has to go back and apologize for it. It happens to be the truth. So who's profiteering on all this? Well, the arms manufacturers, the arms sellers, the people that Pope Francis called the blood-stained arms traders. And so the U.S. and the military, industrial, congressional media, and I say media advisedly complex, profiteering from all of them, preferring that these things go away. Now, this is really important because they're not going to go away. Erdogan has shown himself intent on starting a war between the United States and Russia, of all things, by downing a Russian plane over, he says, Turkey, we think Syria. That's important, but it's not as important as the demonstrated involvement of the Turkish security service in perpetrating the false flag attack outside Damascus on August 21st, 2013. We almost went to war on that. And Obama, curiously enough, is very proud of himself for resisting all the pressure he had from all the neocons and his other advisors to do war on Syria. Now, what happened to the journalists that exposed that? One was a parliamentarian. He's disappeared from the face of the earth. He's charged with treason. What happened to the two major journalists that published other stories like this about Turkish support for terrorists in Syria? They're in jail or they're pending trial. So it's a mockery to think that this government in Turkey is a democracy. It's not. And worse than that, it has its own objectives, which for any sensible person would be shown to be at variance with U.S. objectives, if indeed the U.S. does want some peace in Syria. I think Obama wants peace in Syria. I don't think our military-industrial congressional media complex necessarily wants that. Peace is not very good for business, war, tension, low conflict sort of stuff. It's very, very good for those who either feel threatened by Syria for some reason or other, or who simply want to sell more arms to that.
We're talking to Ray McGovern, former CIA analyst, today a journalist, political commentator, and activist. We're talking to him about the expulsion of Sputnik Turkey's editor-in-chief, Terrell Kerimov, earlier today. Ray McGovern, you talked about the two journalists who in Turkey who exposed the fact that the Turkish government or people or forces inside of Turkey helped stage the false flag attack that was presumed to be the way to start a larger U.S. war against Syria back in August 2013. So those journalists are in prison right now. They're facing life in prison. Isn't that right? Is that what you said?
The two chief editors of the main named Turkish newspaper are the parliamentarian. Now, this took guts. His name is Eren Erdem. He's been charged by Erdogan with treason. Why? Because he brought documents, Turkish court documents, showing that the Turkish intelligence service was shipping precursors for the chemical agent sarin from Europe into Syria, where this kind of agent was used as a pretext to start a war between the United States overtly and Syria. How do we know that John Kerry, the Secretary of State, was not telling the truth when he said no fewer than 35 times on the 30th of August 2013, Bashar al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad did it? We know that because now we have proof from court documents that it was the Turkish intelligence service, supported, I must say, by other, quote, allied or friendly intelligence services. One last thing, of course, Obama himself has said that during this acute period where he was one day from pushing the button to start an overt attack on Syria, shock and awe and all the rest of it, the head of national intelligence, James Clapper, came to see him unannounced. And he said, Mr. President, I know that John Kerry has said that Bashar al-Assad is responsible for that, but just so you know, this is not a slam dunk, Mr. President. You got that? This is not a slam dunk. Now, we knew it was not a slam dunk because our friends within the establishment were telling us we will not allow an intelligence assessment that blames Bashar al-Assad. And indeed, there was no intelligence assessment. A new genre was invented and put into place by the White House. It's called a government assessment, which means it's made by political hacks in the White House, the same hacks that are giving Turkey a free ride for the unconscionable clampdown on that key democratic value, freedom of the press.
Ray McGovern, in our last minute or so, I want to sort of reframe the question then. So you have the Obama administration stepping back from the precipice of war in August, September 2013. That was after John Kerry said that the Syrian government had crossed the red line established by President Obama himself in the use of chemical weapons. What you're saying is that the Turkish government actually engineered that chemical weapons attack to draw the United States into a war with Syria. Now that did not happen. Instead, there's peace negotiations in Geneva. There's the possibility of a ceasefire and an end to the war, perhaps. Do you believe that Turkey's expulsion of the Sputnik Turkey's editor-in-chief, Tural Kerimov, is sort of payback or a political reprisal for the fact that the Turkish government did not get what it needed to get and, in fact, has been on the outs in terms of U.S. policy towards Syria? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's part of a pattern. I wouldn't single out Kerimov. What we have here is many people being put in jail. I guess Kerimov got off easy.
Yeah, he's being deported instead of going to prison.
Yeah. But when you talk about the Turks wanting to get us involved overtly in a war with Syria, it wasn't just the Turks. It was the neocons. It was Hillary Clinton. Who persuaded Obama to set a red line, that they knew that they could cross? Hillary Clinton. How did it come about? A press conference. The president was doing this press conference, and when it was all over, so one last question. And the question was, Mr. President, you say that you won't violate or that you won't get militarily involved in Syria at this time. Is there anything that would change your calculation? He looked down as though reading from notes, and he said, well, yes, there's a red line here. If we see the Syrian government moving or using chemical weapons, that would change my calculation. We probably would become military involved. Now, who gave him that question? Who gave him that answer? It's a no-brainer. Hillary Clinton did. And then later, after she had just left office, it was all set. The Turks were cooperating with the United States. They weren't doing this on their own.
So we'll have to see if there's a Clinton White House next January 2017. We'll have to see what that means for Erdogan and the Turkish policy. Maybe they'll feel there's revived hope for their aggressive position inside of Syria. We've been speaking to Ray McGovern about the deportation of Sputnik Turkey's editor-in-chief, Tural Kerimov. Ray McGovern, thanks so much.